I already got the fan on over here, so I apologize for that first off. It's kind of hot in here, so um, in this video I want to talk about a really awesome book, which I think is really awesome in like critical theory, kind of later, like late 20th century continental stuff. Um, this is Giorgio Agamben's The Open, Man and Animal. This is a really awesome book. It's basically what he's doing. He's following a lot of thinkers from ancient times all the way through Alexander Clave and Martin Heidegger. So the whole thing is he has lots of awesome books. He has a book called Homo Sacer. He has quite a few. But there are some concepts in here which do appear in some of his other works, and I would like to do some more works of his here on this channel. So, first off, the whole thing is it's called Man and Animal, or The Open, because the whole thing is he's talking about this hierarchical structure that we do and that we think of things as in the world, which kind of governs practical and political issues. So, man and animal, we're talking about humanity versus animality. Now, the whole thing, most of people, or most thinkers in the world today think of man as, we have the bodily part, then we have a spiritual or divine part of it. We think of things dually in that way. That's the way Descartes looked at it, and that's the way very many other different philosophers looked at that. Agamben, what he's doing here, now first of all, he has a lot of different little chapters. Now, every one is very short, and the whole book is very readable. It can be read in a very short amount of time. It just depends on, hopefully you have some background in order to kind of get what's going on. There's a lot of stuff here that you're not going to get right away. But anyway, because I've probably read this book a few times. I read this book the first time a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, something like that. So the whole thing is, I guess it has to do with this hierarchy of man and animal. How we have man that is on top. It has like a privileged spot in the hierarchy of the whole world, and those people and those things who live in the world. We have first the stone, which is like a present at hand item, which doesn't really have a world at all. And then we have like a plant and an animal, which has a world to an extent, but not in the same. And this is very, it kind of does follow in the footsteps of Heidegger a lot, because the whole thing is, for Heidegger, Dasein is, in each case, mind. He's talking about human consciousness. He's talking about this human plane of consciousness, or human thought and human life. And Dasein, for Heidegger, is just human. It's just the human life that he's talking about with that thing that he's created, basically. That is thing that he talks about in Being in Time, as well as the history of the concept of time, as well as very many other writings of his. He has a ton, by the way. So, pretty much, the whole thing is that Agamben is trying to break this whole thing down, and in a way this is, and through some sort of a disintegrating logic, which, trying to break down this hierarchy of life, and think about life as it is, and not through a hierarchy of beings, but just as a plane of immanence, or of immanent consciousness is. So we have this like break, this what Agamben calls a caesura, um, which is a total, like, makes a big gap between humanity and animality, and pretty much that's done by the what he calls the anthropological machine. He has a nice little thing on it, if I can find it. Yeah, the anthropological machine. The whole thing. I don't know if you study anthropology or take any kind of anthropology class, they will talk about human life and how that whole thing works, and a lot of what goes on in a basic anthropology classes. They'll talk about how humans lived back then, the hunter-gatherers and the agrarians and pastoralists and all that stuff. They'll talk about how they lived and how they bred and all that stuff. They study humans between then and now. They also study the beings of a human between then and now, like the Neanderthal or the Australopithecus, or the Homo erectus. The very, very different stages of beings that between the ape and the human. There's a lot of that. How they try to study the links between how either through evolution or not, lots of times through a evolutionary thought process, as to how we had like a chimpanzee or a gorilla, and how more sophisticated and more intelligent forms of apes evolved from those gorillas or those chimps, and that's how we go from something like the ape to the, and there's tons of different little beings, that's links between things, and as to how we get they're trying to like fill every gap and discover more beings or more things that existed, and just fill that gap and create like a anthropological history between, say the chimpanzee between the actual Homo sapien, and so they're trying to basically show how that happened, and show how we get from the less intelligent ape to the privileged, very intelligent man, or human, or Homo sapien. So this anthropological machine that Agamben is talking about is trying to separate man from his human or his animal ancestors, if you're looking at it through an evolutionary perspective. Separate him from his ancestor because he's more intelligent. Usually, that's why they would do that, to create this privileged place, and to just establish more and more this absolute difference between man and animal. So this caesura is trying to just break apart this caesura that the anthropological machine is trying to create, is trying to just separate man and animal as far as you can, just keep man at his privileged state, his privileged thing. So between, let's say, we have man and animal, we have this big gap between this privileged state and this lesser animal state. That is called bare life. That is a concept that Agamben uses in a lot of his works. This is definitely one of them. So, bare life, it's what is basically in between the man conscious, or the human consciousness, and the animal consciousness. So thus, the animal consciousness and the animal intelligence is viewed to be much lesser than this privileged human consciousness. So, this bare life, it's just studying it from not having any hierarchical, structure, or no kind of privileged being, just looking at it, through this in-between bare life kind of thing. And the whole thing is to stop this anthropological machine, in order to study things practically and politically in a better way, and to do it in a less biased way. And because also what he says is that this man-animal thing, this man-animal gap, is the conflict which brings all other conflicts. And I would almost think of this as the Marxist bourgeois proletarian kind of conflict. And I would have to agree with him that this man-animal kind of conflict, this this caesura between them, is what causes it. It springs up many other conflicts. And so man should have no rank, and he has a chapter in here which is called No Rank. There should be no rank of any kind of being or any kind of consciousness. We should look at it through just there being consciousness, that immanent consciousness, that bare life, which, where we don't try and look at consciousness or life any differently. And that's the way in which we are going to have a better way of studying ourselves, and studying consciousness, and studying things politically as well. And he also has this concept of messianism, trying to talk about this happy or sufficient life, which the whole thing of politics and studying government and political philosophy and such, is to study the best forms of government, the best forms of society, in social and critical theory, which kind of attaches to the political stuff a good bit, is also about studying the most happy life, and to how to get there and what that consists in. So why is this book called The Open? That is a Heideggerian concept. Now, for Dasein, which is just the human thing, the human intelligent kind of thing going on, and if you read Being in Time, you'll see as to how that contributes to just the human. There's a concept of openness, with Dasein and with being in the world, how consciousness and how being in the world has a bit of an open kind of consciousness thing, and how people are sort of linked via this Umwelt, or this environmental world, or the Umgebung, how people are linked together. Every being is linked together in that, and he does talk a lot about Heidegger and takes a lot of Heideggerian concepts. So it's called The Open because in breaking down this distinction between man and animal, I'm going to read you a quote here, if I can find it. Basically, the animal, or the man animalizes and the animal humanizes, to where there is this in-between where we don't have any distinctions, and then we study things via politics or philosophy, or practical studies, whichever which way, through that, and that's it. Now, there's a lot more to this. Now, what I'm saying here is not, I couldn't possibly, cover all of this. It's the human kind of characteristic. It's the human openness, this because of how we're all linked via Umwelt, and how we kind of animalize man and humanize animals. The animal consciousness and the animal intelligence is the way in which we really make the whole thing open. And this is very much linked to studying and figuring out who we are and what we are. And that's, that's what philosophy is about. That's what critical theory is about. That's what any kind of politics or political philosophy or social theory or critical theory is about. So, now, like I said, I couldn't possibly... Now, this actually is not that long of a book, and it has very short chapters, and it would be a very quick read if you were to get it. I think I saw it on Amazon for like $10, maybe $15. I have yet to purchase it myself, actually. This is a library copy, but I want to. Because I'm buying so many books right now, I can't buy everything, yeah, I highly recommend this book, and hopefully at some point I will get to possibly his Homo Caesar, and he has lots of other books that I would like to get to. So if you think I've left something out, if you are pretty well read of Agamben yourself, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you, or if you have a question. Definitely also comment. I'd love to hear from you, because whenever you comment, I get an email, and if your comment is constructive, then I will always immediately respond. So thank you.